Maria Platusic. I am the owner and creative director of Platusic Design Creative Studio. I'm a brand strategist, branding designer, and WordPress magic maker for high-achieving entrepreneurs that are looking to level up and scale and grow their businesses. And I have the lovely Nora with us today, Nora Luke. So I'm just going to read her quick bio, and then we'll dive into it. Of course, you can do a better intro than what I'm going to do, so you can add on. But Nora is the founder of Corporate to Calling, Nora Luke Coaching, and she's a business and marketing coach. She's a proud corporate dropout, which is awesome, mother of two, and awesome wife. So after a 15-year career in healthcare, Nora left the frustrations of corporate world to pursue her entrepreneurial desires to build a business that supports other women who want to stop the corporate climb. She believes every woman can share their knowledge and create a successful online business. So as the creator of Proud Corporate Dropout Blueprint and the Vision to Virtual Stage, she helps women establish their personal authority and enroll clients by harnessing the power of their voice through online events. That's amazing, because we do have to harness that power. Nora is passionate about empowering other women to create their own vision of having it all. And when she's not working, she's chauffeuring her young children around town, walking her dog, and she enjoys traveling to Mexico, finding reasons to cheer champagne. Ooh, that's a great reason. All things cherry, strong coffee, and she never leaves home without lip gloss. Well, welcome, welcome. She's got it right there. There you go.
I always have it.
Amazing. So I'm just going to change it to speaker view, so you got the floor, and then I'll take a look if there's any questions going on. But I'm excited to dive into this topic because I know, again, personally, I've had a lot of guilt of, especially as a mom, like with children and changing and trying to get your business off the ground and running and all of the things. So I'm excited about this topic and hear what you have to share.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I'll wait for you to swap over. We good? All right. Yeah, so it's interesting when you just mentioned the word guilt. I think a lot of women in particular can oh yeah, I know guilt, and guilt can show up in all areas. And guilt really is a primary reason that many of us sometimes stay stuck, don't take action. I know we're going to get to overthinking. And I wish I had this magic pill that said, just take it and your guilt will go away. And for guilt is becoming proud of squashing our guilt. I try to say I've become a professional guilt squasher because I spent so much of my life overthinking and living in guilt and the trap of it, that now putting that message out for other people to realize that guilt, in particular, change guilt. And this was a term that was kind of coined when I started my business. And I know we were going to well, what is guilt? And I did want to mention, I'm not a life coach. I'm sure there's some life coaches that could chime in with some great questions and great feedback, and I do welcome that. But for me, working with women in particular and going through my own journey of change guilt, it started, I want to say back in 2018, somewhere in that realm, where I had that desire for change. And I had a great career. I loved what I was doing. I worked in healthcare, and people laugh, but my husband, when I first started my career, he asked me, what do I want to do? And I said, well, I want to help people and make money. And so I stumbled into healthcare. And to this day, that still holds true. That's what I want to do. And I think it's okay. But as I'm in this fulfilling career, I still had this desire for more, and I couldn't quite figure it out. But every time I thought of more and making a change and doing something, wham, guilt would come in of, how dare I want something else? Look at how good you have. Look at this job. Look at this career. Look at your life. People would want that. And so I look at change guilt as those feelings that creep in when you seek something different, and it's your mind telling you, stop it, be happy with what you have. It's that subconscious coming in and challenging you. And many of us have heard that the subconscious will come in because it's protecting you. So it's reminding yourself that it's its job, but you shouldn't feel guilty for wanting to create that change. And so I wanted to start with just that overall, I guess, definition, if you will, of how I see change guilt and what that means. And it's really just that feeling that when you seek or desire something else, or you're wanting to make a change in some capacity of your life or your business, and all of a sudden you're stopping yourself with all of the thoughts and the feelings of how dare I should be happy with what I've done. And I don't need to make anything. I don't be happy with what you have, Nora. This is the way it should be. It's good. Don't change anything.
Absolutely. No, and everything you're saying is like resonating heavily with me, because I also was in corporate, and you go to school, you do the thing, you get the jobs, and you're in corporate, you're making decent money, you're doing all the things, and then all of a sudden you have this other desire. And for me, it actually was a little bit different, because I was kind of forced into the thing I always wanted to do, because I was too scared to do it. And sometimes it's the kick in the pants that you need. So I was kind of laid off from corporate, but I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to, be my own boss and explore what that is, and helping others build their businesses. That was something that I had the dream for as well. And I know that as entrepreneurs, there's so many things. It's like, well, but like, why wouldn't you just find another, safe career path and continue on that journey? And why would you like choose this instead? And you have small kids, and you have, in my mind, I am so changed with my ways, that when you have small kids, I'm like, why wouldn't you want to be home with them? Like, so I have the different mentality, right? And there's no right or wrong answer. Those that choose career path or work from home or stay at home, whatever your path is, that's yours and yours alone. But there's so many voices pulling you in every direction. And those are the guilty little negative talks that come about. So I'm sure we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, well, that leads me to think, as when you have that desire for change, and it could be changing just positions in your career. If you are staying in a job and you're climbing that ladder, I'm like you, or I'll be your biggest cheerleader if you're on the path that you want to be on, regardless of what it is. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but I'm saying if you're evolving and you're wanting change, like stopping and telling yourself, change means I'm evolving. The desire for something new means I'm grown as an individual, and then it's actually okay to want something else. And really looking at it different and saying, man, by me not making the change is actually me being selfish, because I'm making it all about me, like, oh, I should stay, I should do this, instead of thinking about the people that you could help along your change journey, or the people that are going to benefit from your change, like your family, your children. A lot of times we look at the negative what ifs versus the positive what ifs. And part of it's that's our conditioning. Many of us were raised with the don't do something unless you're going to be successful at it. And that's that whole fear of failure part, because, and it takes practice of saying, okay, I'm going to make this change, and I'm going to have the courage to push past this change guilt, regardless if it works or not. And that's scary to think, but it's like, if you don't, that means you're just going to stay in the same position that you're in. And is that how you want to live your life? You really have to have those harsh conversations and change that narrative when you're wanting to make an adjustment. And sometimes it's little things. Sometimes we make it seem like it has to be this grand change, like starting a business. It could be making a small decision and we feel change guilt. Like, oh, how dare I want to, and I'm going to go really little here, but this is a true story. How dare I change my email service provider? I've been using whatever for however long and it works great. I was the person, I'm so like, now when I say it out loud, I'm almost embarrassed, but I took a week of researching, over analyzing, my whole analytical brain kicked in. I want to know all the ins and outs of every email platform. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to make the best decision. And I'm like, a week later, I was so exhausted from all of that research, where if I would have just said, I'm giving myself 24 hours, then I'm making a decision, and trusting yourself to then go, okay, decision made, moving on.
Even in the smallest scenarios, and I'm an overthinker and overanalyzer, and I will do that always. So I'm just raising my hand for any choice I have to make. Like for me, it's like this other perfection tendency that I'm trying to, really make simmer down. But it's that perfectionist quality that, as a designer, as everything has to be so meticulous and on point. And when you want to make a small change, you don't realize that it's like no one else actually really cares. Like you're not going to do harm to anyone, but you feel like it's just so much pressure. And I think that's the reality that you have to come to, is like no one will even notice. Like even when I would get engulfed in my work and what I was doing, I'd spend hours like just shifting things like at 4,000% like zoomed into their logo to make sure the tiniest little curves are perfect. And I'm like, no one will ever see this. It's time to stop. You're good. Let's close it. And we're, so like, it's just realizing over time, those perfectionist tendencies, those over analyzing tendencies, they take over. And I think that's what we have to realize. We can't let them take over when we're trying to make a choice or trying to move ahead on something. So that's very valid what you shared.
Yeah, no, and I think a tip for that would be, and this has helped me in numerous decision-making moments in my business and sometimes in my personal life, the setting a time frame where maybe if I have to block it, like go back to the email example, okay, within 24 hours, I'm gonna have it, or an hour, I'll have it narrowed down to 2 choices, and that's all I'm gonna look at. And then within, let's say then it's 24 hours, when I wake up in the morning, I'm making a decision, I'm moving forward. And asking yourself, what happens if I make the wrong choice? Is the email still gonna go out? Yes. Is the end task still gonna happen? Of course. And if I don't love it, I can change it again. Like we sometimes get stuck in thinking that this one choice is our only choice forever. And it's like, why do we put that pressure that we can't change again? And I think that goes for lots of things in business, changing our niche. I know people talk about that all the time, or rebranding in your case, and, changing things up and making small adjustments. It's part of the process, and not being, otherwise, like, we stay stuck in the way it's always been and feel like we can't break out of that. And it's so not true. Like, let go of that pressure of that and feel like you can make another change, and it's okay.
That is the biggest piece. The biggest drama that comes up is niche drama and changing your focus trauma when it comes to rebranding. And I deal with that with every single rebrand client, because they're like, people know me for this, and this is where I get all my business from, and all my money comes from here. And it's like, when you change, it doesn't mean that this is completely shutting down and then not one penny is coming your way. Like, you have to realize that it's a gradual process. It doesn't happen. You're not going to post it once and then that's it, you're done. It's like, it takes time to repeat that message over and over to that new niche and to that new audience until they grasp what it is that you're offering. And it's also that they feel that it's cemented. Like, I'm making this choice and now it's forever. And I'll be the first one to tell you, it's not. Your niche will ebb and flow at the phase and stage you are at in your life. And that has to be fluid. It has to be evolving. It has to be refined. It's never a set and done. And that's the beauty of it. You get to make the choice. So I love that you're sharing that, because it's so valid for many reasons.
Well, and I think for, especially if anyone's worked in the corporate space before, where honestly, it's like a corporate conditioning where we feel like every decision was like, we're going to lose our jobs if we make the wrong decision. And that trickles over into entrepreneurship and letting go of that. And it almost is like baby steps. You get proud of yourself every time you make a decision and move on quickly, because you're like, oh, I'm not going to fire myself over this one. It doesn't have that same impact. And it's almost giving yourself permission to give yourself a chance, and permission to trust your gut sometimes, and just have that self awareness that you are capable of making a choice and a change and a decision. And if it doesn't work, you'll adjust again. Because and some things are larger. In full transparency, I've gone through a large business adjustment the first part of this year, and it's not always the easiest thing to do. And I had the change guilt of, why would I change my business model? Why would I change my niche when it's been going so well? Like, how dare I? And I want to tell people too, sometimes, like, we all know what guilt feels like, but when you don't say things out loud, but in your brain, you're saying, I shouldn't, I couldn't, others would love, how dare I? That's when it's like, okay, recognize that right now you're putting yourself in change guilt, and that could potentially leave you stuck. So it's like, just that self-awareness that it's going on in your mind a little bit and acknowledging it, saying out loud or writing down, like, I'm not wrong for wanting to make a change, or I'm not wrong for wanting to think about making an adjustment. And what could happen by making the change, what good things could come about by not being stuck in the guilt, and then being proud of the courage you take to actually make the adjustment.
It always is a challenge. It's never easy. It's never like, this is the quickest thing. This is the quickest road. This is the easiest task at hand. It's always challenging. But I think when you realize, I think when we put in perspective what our bigger picture goals are and bringing into perspective what those future goals are, it highlights what needs to happen, right? So you can work your way backwards to understand what actually needs to happen in your business, what changes do need to happen in order to achieve those big picture goals. And as long as you know that that's the goal on the horizon and what I'm doing is getting me to what I want to achieve, then it's a good thing, right? Like being in alignment with the path that you're wanting to take, those big picture goals that you want to hit, that's the objective. So no matter what's veering you to the right or to the left, or what anyone is telling you, or what your own self is telling you, as long as you're hitting that target and aiming for that target with knowledge and, it's trial and error. No one's perfect. You're not going to get it perfectly, and realize that I'm just taking micro steps to get closer to what it is I want to accomplish and achieve, then that's what we need to kind of tell ourselves and envelop in. As long as in alignment to what feels good for us and feels like it's the right path and the right choice. And eventually we get over that fear and it feels even more powerful and you sit into it even better. So that first hump is the hardest, but once you get into it, then it's like, yes, why did I wait so long to do this, right?
And it's hard to sometimes see that other side when you're sitting in it. And that's where it's like giving yourself the timeline to make the decision. And I know for me and some other women I've worked with and had conversations with, it's the fear of I'm throwing everything away that I've worked on the last however amount of time. Instead of looking at it as those were my building blocks, those were my stepping, stones, if you will, to get where you are. And I feel that every time you go to make a change, it's like looking back at everything you did with the gratitude of, I'm so glad I did all of that and went through all of that to get here. Because now I'm in a position, again, where I'm evolving, and this is a good thing. It's like just changing that mindset around, it's not a negative, it's not bad. It's just I'm at a new spot. I'm in a new growth phase. This is good. And I'm not throwing anything away. I'm building upon everything I've learned and everything I've done in my business, or, if it's a life thing, to get me where I'm at, to a point where I can have the, almost like the privilege to make a change. And I think it's a good place to be. And we look at it from the lens of fear because of what could go wrong versus the lens of positive that you're at that spot.
Down via the lenses and via when we are trying to make that change, and just understanding that everything that we've done to this point has led us to this point. And especially when it comes to branding, people are like, they want to downplay all of their skill set and knowledge and their past. I'm like, no, this is my focus. I'm just starting this. This is year one that I'm doing this. I'm like, those 15 years of doing whatever you've done count for why you are here. So it's actually year 16, not year one, right? So I think it's just, like you said, it's changing that narrative and flipping that script of everything, all those skills and talents you have. If you look back, what was the reason that, you got promotions, or what were the reasons that you got accolades at your previous work? What was your strong suit? What it made you excel? Those are the spaces that you love to live in, that you enjoy. So how can you bring more of that into what you're pursuing now? There's always a learning piece of it, whether it's admin and like if you're great at organizing, if you're great with numbers, if you're great with people, if you're great with selling, all of these things you need as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. So you're going to excel. Like these are all tools you require that you need to highlight and bring to the forefront. So I love that you broke it down that way.
business might be new, but you're not new. All of your experience has also led to your expertise, and it's all one cumulative package. And I relate it back to the working world. You know, if you got a promotion, no one's going to say, oh, you're new, because you have all this history with you. Same thing in entrepreneurship. You're taking things with you. I actually, when I first started, I did this free resource about 5 surprising skills that transfer from corporate to entrepreneur. And some of them I'm trying to pull from my memory now, because it was like, 3-4 years ago, but it was like, standing on, how did I come, like kind of feeling like Gumby. In the corporate world, you're kind of always pulled, and I'm like, entrepreneurship, you're feeling like you got to do all these different things, just some of the things you don't realize that you've done your entire career are supporting you now in your new endeavors or whatever it is that you're going through in your business. There's a lot of correlation with things you've done in your past that are currently helping you and supporting you in your future levels.
Like the top key pieces to really combating change guilt, because I know it is a struggle. And the thing is, it doesn't go away. It's a struggle at every level, at every stage, at every, now you're hitting this milestone, and it's a new set of struggles each and every time. They just like resurface in a different light, or in a different way. So what would you say are like the top ways to recognize and then challenge, I guess, them and overcome them, if you will, because they will always appear. It will never go away.
One of the first things that comes to mind is it's all a bunch of mind drama. And I know there's some life coaches or, trauma coaches that would have some great expertise with this, but I find really stopping yourself and asking, am I thinking in fact or in fiction? Because you're saying, I shouldn't do this because blah, blah, blah. Is that true? Or is that just something that's going on in your mind? And every once in a while, we have a tendency to not trust ourselves quite as much. And we need that phone and honest friend. And that could be your coach or consultant, depending on where you're at in your journey of, that real raw conversation, because you get stuck in your own world, in your own bottle, where you can't read the label. And if you say those words out loud to somebody else, they'll look at you like that you're making things up. And it's surprising how many times we actually make scenarios up in our brain, or you're looking ahead to what could happen at step 5 when you didn't even get to step 1, 2, 3, or 4 yet. So that what ifs, and that's a huge piece too. So the fact and fiction, really having an honest conversation with a trusted colleague or partner or coach or somebody. And then am I in reality right now, or am I already worried about what's going to happen in the future when I haven't even done anything yet? Because so much happens when you start taking real action that you realize half the things you worried about or you're feeling guilty about never even come to life. And it's like having somebody kind of bring you back, like, well, let's do step 1 first and see what happens before we freak out about what's going to happen on step 5. Like those are like 3 ways to really take those first, I would say, action steps when the guilt starts to feel like it's pounding on you and you're like, I just can't, I shouldn't, you're blowing it up like the world's going to end if you make this change.
I love how you broke that down, and it's true. We tend to blur the lines of fact and fiction, because fiction starts to become fact in our brain. Like our brains can be real jerks at times and make us believe things that aren't even true. So I love that you brought that up. And then asking a friend. I know sometimes when you say, I'm going to do this and I don't know if I can do this or this, and you tell that trusted friend, they're like, what are you talking about? Have you ever not fulfilled a promise that you've put with clients or friends or whatever? Have you ever gone against it? And then you're like, well, no. So why would you doubt yourself now in this scenario, right? So I think those are valid. And then skipping ahead, the what ifs, that keeps us paralyzed, I find. Like when we aren't just focusing on what we need to work on right now and worrying about, the 3 to 4 week from now, or even a year from now, that keeps us paralyzed from not moving forward. So those are really powerful tools, and thank you for sharing that. Would you say that there are does it show up differently at each level, Or is it kind of still the same? Doesn't matter if you're, hitting, 50K, 100K, a million plus, like, does it still show up at each level the same, or does it like rear its reary head differently, I guess, if you will?
It's it's a really odd answer because it's like different yet the same. Because you're going to feel like you have more on the line, more to risk when you make certain changes later, if you will. If you have, I'm just going to use, some basic numbers. You're like, you have 50 clients, you're more scared to make a change versus if you only have 5 clients. But it doesn't, the reasoning behind why you wanting to make the change is really what is important to look at. Are we making the change to better serve clients? Are we making the change to just make more money? Are we making the change because someone told us that we're supposed to do? Like, there's certain red flags to look for and why we're wanting that change. Or is it really that evolution of you? Like, we feel that we're like, I'm going to make this business, I'm going to create it, and it's going to get here, and it's going to stay perfect like this forever. Well, that's just like saying, well, I'm going to start my job at the entry level and I'm never going to grow. And that's, if that's what you want, that's fine. But it's also like, if that's not what you want, realizing this is a good thing. We're growing and evolving as a business owner, as a human being, and we're wanting to expand that in different levels. And our brain's trying to tell us, no, stay safe, be comfortable, be happy with what you have. You've worked hard, build this. And that's when you go, yeah, but good job, me. Now I got to go here. Let's go. And it's like that push of, I'm doing it for the right reasons. Let's go. And I go back to that, like, you're not leaving things behind. You're simply giving yourself a chance to grow. And if you don't give yourself that chance, more than likely, you're going to come back later and have the horrible regret that falls in line. And it's like, but we're scared to fail, but we don't want to regret. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is just progress. And I know that's so much easier said sometimes than done, and we all go through it, and take some safety in that. It's one thing to leave with any other entrepreneur or solopreneur out there. It's like, you're not alone. Everyone faces it. It's just taking those steps for the right reasons in spite of it.
I love that you're bringing it to the reasons behind it, right? Because we get pulled and pushed in so many different ways when you're a business owner. And I always say this to my clients, there's a lot of shouldas out there. You should be doing this, and you should be doing that, and you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't be doing that. And just, we get bombarded with, okay, well, what's the right answer? Because you can find 50 to yes and 50 to no, and you're stuck not knowing which way to go. So I think sitting back and putting your CEO hat on and asking yourself, why would I do this? And what are the benefits to me for doing this? And what's the reasoning behind it? Like you said, that brings us back to the main purpose, right? Like, is it to hit those big picture goals? And does it feel in alignment with me evolving and growing as a person, as a business owner, and all of those things? So I think that's probably the most important piece, is the why behind it. Not because someone's telling you to do something, but because you actually truly deeply feel this is the right choice for you moving forward. And I can repeat that over and over with all of my clients as well.
Yes.
Finding alignment is always the key. So I love that you shared that.
I like how you said the CEO hat piece, because we kind of hear that term, but think of it from, if you were in the C-suite back in the corporate world and you're at the top writing, well, they don't really do this part, but writing everyone's job descriptions, how would you write yours? What would you tell you to do if you were the employee? So it's like being that CEO and really looking at it from that directive standpoint versus just the feeling standpoint. And it's hard sometimes because we're used to, all right, who's going to tell me what to do? My boss, my coach, depending on where you're at, my mom, like, people are always telling you what to do your whole life. And in this, it's like that empowerment of, I'm going to trust myself to do this. And that was where I think the alignment piece comes in. Sometimes people struggle with that word, like, well, what does that mean? And honestly, it means, in my opinion, like shutting out a lot of the noise from all the should-haves that you mentioned and doing what feels right. And then trusting yourself to make those adjustments along the way. And then that means these 12 strategies over here didn't work for you, and that's okay. Stick to the ones that do, or that also feel good for you and allow you to get the results you're looking for.
Everybody who shares like they say the word failure. It's such a harsh word, I find,
Yes.
because it's so negative and harsh, where to me, it's like little mini learned attempts of doing whatever you're trying to do. And it's like all of those failures, to me, that's data. Like when I'm like rebranding someone, I'm like, give me all of this data. So you tried working with this industry, and tell me what happened when you worked with them, and what happened when you just decided to work and go in this direction, and what did that feel like, and like did it actually, you know, convert, and did you get great clients, and do you
Mhm.
love working with them? Are they ideal fits for you? For me, I'm always about taking the least abrasive path, because that keeps the momentum going. And the alignment piece to me means, how can you feel like your fullest self? How does it relate to your core values? And does it bring it back to the future goals and your core values? Does that feel aligned? Are those two pieces in target? And are you, you know, is your trajectory going there? Even if you're going
Mhm.
down and up, but you're still going up. I always like to think of the spiral staircase. So it's like, it's not just a hamster wheel, but you're just slowly going upward, right?
Yes.
Um, it is that what it feels like for you. And it's okay to have those miss attempts, because that's just data that you're going to use and perfect and get better as you go along, right? So that's
Yes.
kind of my perspective on alignment and failure, if you will.
Yeah, and failures, I remember, I wish I could give credit to who said it, but I've since used it. And I think I've said to a client one time, you're like, so how are we going to fail this week? And it's like, when you start saying that to yourself, you know, she was like, oh my gosh, terrified, I don't fail, which no, nobody seeks out to fail, but that's part of the problem sometimes, you know, or and I even talked with my kids, what didn't go so well today? You know, because not everything's going to go well. We know that, but accepting it, knowing it are two different things. And it's really changing. I know this isn't a failure conversation, but it does intertwine with guilt and making decisions, because that fear of making the wrong one and letting go of that is a vital step in the confidence as a decision maker who continues to make decisions without letting the guilt keep them stuck for too long.
Well, I just want to say, you've been sharing so many great little nuggets like that, are just like really great tools to have in your arsenal in order to combat change guilt, and that we all are doing it. It's not like it's you know, elusive, like not everybody goes through it. Everyone has gone through it at one point or time, and it's continuous. I know that, like I said, every stage I'm at, something else is like rearing its head and barking at me in the background. So it's something you have to deal with constantly. But what would you say to those having change guilt surrounding, let's say, a career change, or wanting to build a business, and wanting to switch things up? What would you say to them directly, if you could share something directly to them?
Yeah, it's, you know, I would say express gratitude for what you do have, that you have that job. Let's say that is, but it's reminding yourself that when you're staying stuck in the guilt, that that's actually keeping you stuck, and you're letting that control you versus you actually controlling what your future could be like. And so I think I want to go back to, it doesn't mean you're throwing anything away. You're just building upon it. And that empowerment and looking at it like that and digging like kind of deep and like, you know, I'm strong, I'm a badass, I can do this kind of attitude, you know, put your superhero cape on that you've earned, you know, all these years of everything you've done, and give yourself a chance to take those steps to move past the guilt to build what you want.
Because it's never, you know, burn everything to the ground and start from zero. And that's the biggest key point that I tell a lot of my clients as well. We're never throwing everything, like that's all the important data, all the
Mm.
important information. We're just going to take it, we're going to pick the parts we require most and refine it, and you know, and move forward with those items. It's always something to build off of. Absolutely. So I love that you shared that. So I know we could probably be chatting forever. I just want to be mindful of
Yeah,
time,
no, of
but
course.
if anyone has any questions, make sure to drop them in the live, and we can go back and we'll address them. Right now, I'm trying to see, but I can't see in the live. It's not refreshing for me on my phone. But yes, so if you guys have any questions, make sure to drop them below. And so where can people reach out to you? Or do you have anything up and coming that you want to let people know about, any events or anything like that? Like, how can people find you?
It's a social world. I'm Nora Luke. You can find me anywhere, websites, that everything's that. My social handles are all Nora Luke. And actually right now I am in the process, I actually have a call later today where I am rebuilding part of my program. So I am going to be having the first, I don't have a date set, so that's always a little tough, but we are going to be launching a converting masterclass for individuals because I really want them to learn how to take their idea and get it out there without overthinking. So we're creating these short, strong, powerful converting masterclasses that are not the old hour and a half, 5-day, let's put some real fire behind what message you're putting out there. So that's what I'm in the process of creating right now. So the more to come on that, and you can always find me on social to find details for that.
We're always limited with time, so anything that we can infuse the main stuff we need and remove all the fluff and get us going and taking action, the better. So I love the sound of that. Well, this has been amazing. I thank you so much for joining me today, Nora. And I love your perspective and your insight and your intel on this topic. I know it seems like you've been dealing with it for a while and helping people and guiding people through this for a while. So thank you so much for sharing all of that insight with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. So if you have any questions, make sure to drop them below. Reach out to Nora for her coaching, for all of her things, and for this amazing workshop that she is developing. And for anyone else who wants to have the spotlight on them and share an amazing topic and value to the community, be sure to reach out to me or drop a note below. And until next time, thank you, everyone.